This is Terry, and in this video, we're going to talk about the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula is just used a lot when we're solving for x and we're having a hard time factoring. So if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, I have the quadratic formula written out. It is minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so I also have written down below it what those letters stand for. So A stands for the number in front of x squared, B is the number in front of x, and C is just the number by itself. So the first thing we do before we do anything, if we're going to use the quadratic formula, is we always have to make sure that our problem equals 0. So if you'll notice, we have 6x squared minus 21x minus 12 equals 0. And so it already equals 0, so perfect. We are all set up to go. And then what we are going to do is we are going to figure out what our A, B, and C is, so we can replace those numbers in that formula. So A is always the number in front of x squared. So where is x squared? Here's our x squared. So what is the number in front of it? We see that it's a 6. So we're just going to write down A equals 6. Now we're going to go to the B. It's the number in front of x. So where's our x? Right here. What is the number in front of x? It is a negative 21. Always take the sign with it. If you have a negative sign, take it with it, okay? We don't take the letters with it, just the number and the sign, okay? And then C is the number by itself. And where is the number by itself? It is right here, and we know that is a negative 12. All right, so we are ready to start working our problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my quadratic formula. So I have minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to use the erase function on my tablet here, and we are going to replace every one of those letters with the number that corresponds. So we're going to erase this B, and when I erase that B, I'm going to replace it with what B was. And we know B was negative 21. Well, when we replace it, always replace it with parentheses and then your number. So parentheses negative 21. That helps to keep that negative out front, them separated, okay? All right, so we go to the next one. We have another B. We're going to replace it with parentheses negative 21. Close our parentheses. Then we have an A. So we're going to replace that A. What was our A? It was 6. So make sure you put it in parentheses. And then lastly, we have that C. We know that C was a negative 12. And so we replace it. And then if we look on the bottom, we see another A down there. So we need to replace it because we need all numbers in here. And our A was 6. So we're going to replace all of our letters with numbers. All right, now we can start working. So let's look at this. We have a negative times a negative 21. And we know anytime you see two negatives side by side, that just makes a positive. So we have a plus 21 or just a 21. And so we'll say 21 plus or minus the square root. And then if I was you, when I get to this part, I would literally type everything that's underneath the square root sign in my calculator, starting with that parentheses negative 21 parentheses squared. So make sure you type the parentheses in there with it. And if you type that all into your calculator, you're going to get 729. Okay, and then that's all over, and we have 2 times 6 on the bottom, and that is 12. Okay, so from there, we're just going to simplify a little more. So we say 21 plus or minus, and we have the square root of 729. If you type that in your calculator, the square root of 729, you are going to get 27. Okay, and that is all over 12. So we're almost done. We look at this and we're like, okay, what does that plus and minus mean? That just means we're going to separate this into two problems. We're going to have 21 plus 27 over 12. And we're going to have 21 minus 27 over 12. Okay, so if you type into your calculator 21 plus 27 over 12, that is actually going to give you a 4. And if you type in your calculator 21 minus 27 over 12, that's going to give you a -1/2. So we have actually just found our two answers for our x values using the quadratic formula for this problem. All right, so let's look at one more here. Not too bad, huh? I'm going to separate this a little bit, and then I'm going to scroll up, but I want to make sure that we can still see our formula, so you can still see it. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to try another problem here. We've got -15x squared equals -9x minus 6. All right, so I told you the first thing before we can use a quadratic formula to solve is that we always have to have one side equal 0. So we have to move something. Either the -15x squared has to go to one side, or the -9x and the -6 have to move to the other. So let's just move our -15x squared. That's only one thing we have to move. So we're going to say, we know we do the opposite, so it's plus 15x squared. What we do to one side, we must do to the other. And I've got it out there kind of to the edge because it does not combine with anybody because it's not got a like term. So just so we won't accidentally add it. So -15 plus 15, that cancels out. So that actually makes a 0, which is perfect because that's what we want. And then we just bring everything else down because none of that can combine together. All right, so here we go. We're going to start looking for our a, b, and c. So a is the number in front of x squared. Where's our x squared? He's over here this time, right? What is the number in front of x squared? It's 15, a plus 15. So we're just going to say a equals 15. I hope you notice we don't bring the letters with it, just the numbers. All right, so next we're looking for b. B is the number in front of x. So where's our x? It's right here. So what is the number in front of x? It is a -9. And then c is going to be the number all by itself. Where's our c? It's right here. It's that -6. All right, once we have all of our numbers in place, so we know what our letters equal, we're going to rewrite that quadratic formula. Minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, perfect. So we are going to do some erasing and some fixing here. So we're going to erase this b, and we're going to replace that b with what we had. And we had -9. Remember, it has to go in parentheses. That is very, very important, or it will mess up your answer. Okay, we've got a b here, so we're going to replace it with a -9 in parentheses. Then we have an a. We're going to replace that a, and that a is a 15. So we'll put our 15 in here, and then we'll replace our c, and our c was a -6. So we'll put our -6 in, and then don't forget the a on the bottom because we can't have any letters left in it. And then the a on the bottom becomes a 15. All right, so from there, we are ready to solve this. So I'm going to move over here to the side a little bit. So we have a negative times a -9, and we know anytime we have a negative and a negative together, it makes a +9, right? So 9 plus or minus the square root. And again, I would take my calculator and everything that's underneath the square root, including all the parentheses, type that into your calculator and see what you get. When you type that all in, it should give you 441 all over. And then 2 times 15 we know is 30. Okay, so we got to simplify down just a little more. So we got 9 plus or minus. What is the square root of 441? I would type that in my calculator and it's going to give you a 21. And that's all over 30. And so now we're just separating these two problems because we're down to that plus or minus, right? So it's 9 plus 21 over 30 and 9 minus 21 over 30. Okay, once we have those two, we're just going to type 9 plus 21 over 30 into your calculator and see what you get. And that should give you 30 over 30, which is just 1. And then the 9 minus 21 over 30 is going to give you a -2 over 5. And so we have literally just found our two answers using the quadratic formula to solve for x.